Rosa had always known the sound of her mother's alarm clock at 5 in the morning. The old digital clock would beep loudly from the kitchen, and she could hear her mother quietly moving around their small apartment, trying not to wake her. By the time Rosa opened her eyes, her mother, Elena, was already dressed in her crisp white uniform, hair pulled back neatly, ready for another long day at the Al-Mansouri mansion. Elena had been working as a housekeeper for the wealthy Arab family for over 20 years. She started when Rosa was just 8 years old, a scared single mother who desperately needed a job that would pay enough to keep them afloat. The Al-Mansouri family owned one of the largest oil companies in the region, and their Beverly Hills home was like something out of a magazine. Marble floors that reflected the crystal chandeliers. Rooms so big that Rosa got lost the first time her mother brought her to work during a school holiday. Back then, little Rosa would sit quietly in the kitchen while her mother worked, doing her homework at the staff table and watching Elena dust priceless artwork and vacuum Persian rugs that cost more than their yearly rent. The mansion had 12 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, a library with books in 5 different languages, and a pool that sparkled like diamonds in the California sun. Ahmed al-Mansouri was the head of the family, a man in his 60s who had built his fortune from nothing. He had come to America 30 years ago with big dreams and incredible determination. Through smart investments in oil and real estate, he had created an empire worth billions. Despite his massive wealth, Ahmed always treated Elena with respect. He would greet her politely each morning, ask about Rosa's school progress, and never made her feel like she was invisible the way some rich people did. Rosa grew up in 2 worlds. At home, she lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment where she shared a room with her mother. They shopped at discount stores, counted every dollar, and Elena worked extra hours just to pay for Rosa's school supplies. But several times a week, Rosa would spend her afternoons at the mansion, doing homework in rooms that felt like palaces. Ahmed's wife, Layla, was equally kind to Elena's daughter. Sometimes she would find Rosa reading in the library and would sit down to talk with her about books. Layla had been a literature teacher in Lebanon before moving to America, and she loved discussing stories with the bright young girl. She noticed that Rosa was incredibly smart and had a natural curiosity about everything around her. What made Rosa special was her ability to understand both worlds perfectly. She learned Arabic by listening to Ahmed and Layla speak to each other, and soon she could switch between English and Arabic as easily as changing clothes. Ahmed was amazed by how quickly she picked up the language. He would sometimes test her vocabulary, and Rosa would surprise him by knowing words that even some native speakers struggled with. As Rosa grew older, she started helping her mother during school breaks and weekends. She would polish the silver, organize the enormous walk-in closets, and help Elena prepare the house when the Al-Mansouri family hosted important business dinners. Rosa learned to move quietly through the mansion, to be respectful but not scared, and to understand that their job was important even if others might look down on housekeeping work. Elena always told her daughter that education was the key to a better life. Even when money was tight, she made sure Rosa had everything she needed for school. Elena would work overtime to pay for Rosa's textbooks, and she saved every penny she could for her daughter's college fund. She wanted Rosa to have choices that she never had. Rosa excelled in school and eventually got into UCLA, where she studied international business. She chose that major partly because of all the conversations she had overheard between Ahmed and his business partners over the years. She was fascinated by how companies worked across different countries and cultures. Her professors were impressed by her real-world understanding of cultural differences in business, something most students only learned from textbooks. During college, Rosa continued working at the mansion during holidays and summer breaks. Ahmed would sometimes ask her about her studies, and he seemed genuinely interested in her opinions about business and international relations. He would tell her stories about his early days building his company, the mistakes he made, and the lessons he learned. Rosa absorbed every word, not knowing that this knowledge would one day prove invaluable. The Al-Mansouri family had 3 children of their own, but they were all much older than Rosa and had moved away to pursue their own careers. Ahmed's oldest son ran the European division of their oil company from London. His daughter was a doctor in New York, and his youngest son was studying at Harvard Business School. Ahmed was proud of his children's success, but Rosa could tell that he sometimes felt lonely in the big house with just Layla for company. Elena had watched Rosa transform from a shy little girl into a confident young woman. Rosa was now 26, had graduated from college with honors, and was working at a small import-export company downtown. She was good at her job, especially when dealing with Middle Eastern clients, but the pay wasn't great and the work wasn't particularly challenging. Elena worried that her brilliant daughter was capable of so much more, but she was proud that Rosa had broken the cycle of poverty that had trapped their family for generations. Rosa still helped her mother at the mansion on weekends. It had become their routine, their way of spending time together while earning a little extra money. Rosa could clean just as efficiently as Elena, and she had inherited her mother's attention to detail. More importantly, she had developed a genuine affection for the Al-Mansouri family. They had been part of her life for so long that the mansion felt like a second home. Ahmed was now in his late 60s, and Rosa noticed that he seemed more stressed than usual lately. She would overhear phone calls where he sounded worried, and she caught fragments of conversations about business problems and difficult negotiations. She knew his company was involved in some major international deals, but she didn't realize just how complicated and high stakes they were becoming. Elena always taught Rosa to be observant but never intrusive. They were there to work, not to get involved in family business. But Rosa couldn't help noticing the tension in Ahmed's voice when he spoke to his business partners, or the way he would pace in his office late into the evening, making phone call after phone call. The mansion felt different these days. There were more business meetings, more serious-looking men in expensive suits coming and going at all hours. Rosa would serve tea during these meetings, moving silently around the room while the men discussed millions of dollars as casually as other people talked about the weather. One evening, as Rosa was helping Elena fold laundry in the house's enormous utility room, Ahmed walked by and stopped to thank them for their hard work. He looked tired, older than his years, and Rosa felt a surge of concern for the man who had been so kind to her family for decades. Ahmed paused at the doorway and looked at Rosa thoughtfully. "You know," he said, "I've watched you grow up in this house. You've become such an intelligent young woman. Your mother should be very proud." Elena smiled and thanked him, but Rosa noticed something in his eyes that she hadn't seen before. It was as if he was really seeing her for the first time, not just as Elena's daughter, but as someone with her own capabilities and potential. That night, as Rosa and Elena rode the bus home to their apartment, Elena talked about how grateful she was for Ahmed's kindness over the years. "He's a good man," she said. "Even with all his money and success, he never forgot how to treat people with respect. That's rare in this world." Rosa nodded, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something big was about to change. She had no way of knowing that within a few weeks, Ahmed would face the biggest crisis of his business career, and that her unique combination of skills, cultural knowledge, and loyalty would make her the only person who could help him save everything he had worked his entire life to build. The next morning, Rosa woke up to the familiar sound of her mother's alarm clock, just like thousands of mornings before. But this time, she had no idea that it would be one of the last ordinary days of her life. Rosa was sitting at her small desk at the import company, reviewing shipping documents for a client in Morocco, when her phone rang. The caller ID showed Ahmed Al-Mansouri's name, which was unusual. In all the years she had known him, Ahmed had never called her directly. Any communication about work schedules or house matters always went through her mother, Elena. She answered hesitantly. "Hello, Mr. Al-Mansouri?" Ahmed's voice sounded strained, almost desperate. "Rosa, I need to speak with you urgently. Can you come to the house immediately? I know you're at work, but this is very important." Rosa felt her heart skip a beat. "Is everything okay? Is my mother all right?" "Elena is fine," Ahmed said quickly. "She's here with me now. But Rosa, I have a serious problem, and I think you might be the only person who can help me. How quickly can you get here?" Rosa looked around the office. Her boss was in a meeting, and she had already finished most of her urgent tasks for the day. "I can be there in about 40 minutes, she said, grabbing her purse and car keys. "Please hurry," Ahmed said, and the line went dead. During the drive to Beverly Hills, Rosa's mind raced with possibilities. What kind of problem could Ahmed have that would require her help specifically? She was just Elena's daughter, a regular office worker with a business degree. Ahmed had teams of lawyers, accountants, and business advisors. What could she possibly offer that his high-powered consultants couldn't? When Rosa arrived at the mansion, Elena met her at the door. Her mother's face was filled with worry and confusion. "He's been pacing in his office for hours," Elena whispered as they walked through the marble hallway. "Making phone calls, shouting in Arabic. I've never seen him this upset." Ahmed's home office was usually a place of calm and order. The walls were lined with books, awards, and photos of him meeting with world leaders and business moguls. But today, the room looked like a hurricane had hit it. Papers were scattered across his massive mahogany desk, and Ahmed was standing by the window, staring out at his perfectly manicured garden with his hands clasped behind his back. When Rosa and Elena entered, Ahmed turned around. Rosa was shocked by his appearance. The confident, dignified man she had known all her life looked exhausted and defeated. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie was loose, and there were dark circles under his eyes. "Rosa," he said, relief flooding his voice. "Thank you for coming so quickly." He gestured to the chairs in front of his desk. "Please, both of you, sit down. I need to explain something very important." Ahmed walked to his desk and picked up a thick folder filled with documents. "For the past 2 years, I've been working on the biggest business deal of my entire career. It's worth $866 million. This deal would secure my company's future for the next 20 years and create thousands of jobs." Rosa listened intently as Ahmed explained the complexity of the deal. He was partnering with a consortium of investors from the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar to develop a massive oil processing facility. The project would revolutionize how petroleum products were refined and distributed across the Middle East and North America. "The negotiations have been going on for months," Ahmed continued, his voice growing more agitated. "Everything was proceeding smoothly until this week. Suddenly, the Arab investors became cold and distant. They started questioning every detail of our agreement. Yesterday, they told me they were considering pulling out of the deal entirely." Elena looked confused. "But sir, what does this have to do with Rosa?" Ahmed ran his hands through his hair. "I've been trying to figure out what went wrong. I hired the best translators, the most expensive business consultants. But yesterday, I discovered the problem." He picked up a contract from his desk and pointed to several highlighted sections. The translators made critical errors. Not just simple mistakes, but cultural misunderstandings that have offended our potential partners. For example, there's a clause about profit sharing that, when translated into Arabic, implies that the Arab investors are junior partners who need American approval for their decisions. In their culture, this is deeply insulting. Rosa began to understand why Ahmed had called her. Her years of listening to conversations between Ahmed and his business associates, combined with her formal education in international business, had given her a unique perspective on cross-cultural negotiations. "But Mr. Al-Mansouri," Rosa said, carefully, "surely you have professional translators who can fix these problems?" Ahmed shook his head in frustration. "I've tried 3 different translation companies. They can fix the literal words, but they don't understand the deeper cultural implications. The damage has already been done. The Arab investors feel disrespected, and they're questioning whether I truly understand or value their partnership." He sat down heavily in his leather chair. "Rosa, I've watched you grow up in this house. I've seen how you naturally switch between cultures, how you understand both the American business world and Arab traditions. You speak Arabic better than some of my own relatives, and you have a business education. More importantly, you have something that money can't buy: integrity and genuine respect for both cultures." Rosa felt overwhelmed. "I'm honored that you think so highly of me, but I'm not a professional negotiator. I work for a small import company. I've never handled anything close to this scale." "That's exactly why I need you," Ahmed said earnestly. "The professional negotiators see this as just another deal. They don't understand that in Arab culture, business is personal. It's about relationships, trust, and mutual respect. You've grown up understanding this naturally." Elena spoke up quietly. "Rosa, what exactly would you need to do?" Ahmed explained that the Arab investors had agreed to one final meeting, scheduled for the following day in Dubai. They've given me 48 hours to fix the cultural problems and restore their confidence in our partnership. If I fail, they'll invest their money elsewhere, and my company will lose the biggest opportunity in its history. You want me to go to Dubai? Rosa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I want you to come with me as my cultural advisor and translator, Ahmed said. Not just to translate words, but to help me communicate in a way that shows true respect for their traditions and business values. You would help me rebuild the trust that's been damaged. Rosa's mind was spinning. Dubai was thousands of miles away. She had never been involved in international business negotiations. The responsibility was enormous, hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands of jobs hanging in the balance. I don't know if I'm qualified for this, Rosa said honestly. Ahmed leaned forward in his chair. Rosa, do you remember when you were 16 and I had that dinner party for investors from Kuwait? You helped Elena serve, and afterward one of the guests asked to speak with me privately. He told me he was impressed by the young woman who had served his tea because she had greeted him in perfect classical Arabic and had shown exactly the right level of respect for his age and status. He said most American young people, even those who speak Arabic, don't understand these subtle cultural nuances. Rosa remembered that evening. She had simply treated the elderly Kuwaiti businessman the way she had been taught to treat elders in Arab culture, with genuine warmth and respect. You have a gift, Ahmed continued. You don't just speak the language, you understand the heart of the culture. That's what I need to save this deal. Elena reached over and took her daughter's hand. Rosa, this man gave us a chance when no one else would. He's been good to our family for over 20 years. If he thinks you can help, maybe you should consider it. Ahmed stood up and walked around his desk. I know I'm asking a lot. You would miss work, travel to a foreign country, and take on enormous responsibility. But Rosa, I believe in you. More than that, I trust you completely. In a world where people often let you down, you and your mother have been consistently honest, hardworking, and loyal. Rosa looked at the scattered papers on Ahmed's desk, evidence of months of work that was falling apart due to cultural misunderstandings. She thought about her mother, who had sacrificed so much to give her opportunities. She thought about Ahmed, who had always treated them with kindness and respect. If I agree to help, Rosa said slowly, what exactly would happen? Ahmed's eyes lit up with hope. We would fly to Dubai tomorrow morning. I've arranged meetings with the lead investors. Your job would be to help me navigate the cultural aspects of the negotiations, ensure that nothing gets lost in translation, and help me demonstrate that we truly value this partnership. Rosa took a deep breath. She was scared, but she also felt a strange sense of destiny, as if her entire life had been preparing her for this moment. All those years of watching business meetings, learning Arabic, studying international business, maybe it all led to this. Okay, she said finally. I'll help you. Ahmed's relief was visible. Thank you, Rosa. I promise you won't regret this decision. As Rosa left the mansion that evening, she had no idea that this single phone call would change her life forever. The 14-hour flight to Dubai felt like the longest night of Rosa's life. She sat in the first-class cabin next to Ahmed, surrounded by luxury she had never experienced before, but her stomach was churning with nervousness. Ahmed had spent most of the flight reviewing documents and preparing talking points while Rosa studied the investor profiles and tried to memorize every cultural detail that might be important. Remember, Ahmed said quietly as the plane began its descent, these men are not just business people. They're heads of families, respected leaders in their communities. Karim Al-Zahra from the UAE has been in business for 40 years. Omar bin Rashid from Qatar comes from a family that's been trading for generations. And Fahad Al Saud from Saudi Arabia is known for his incredible attention to honor and respect in all his dealings. Rosa nodded, her mouth dry with anxiety. She had read their backgrounds, but seeing their names on paper was very different from knowing she would be sitting across from them in a few hours, trying to save an $866 million deal. When they landed at Dubai International Airport, the heat hit Rosa like a wave. Even inside the air-conditioned terminal, she could feel the intensity of the desert sun outside. Ahmed's local assistant, Khalil, met them at customs and drove them through the stunning city with its massive skyscrapers and golden beaches. The first meeting is in 2 hours, Khalil explained, as they checked into the luxurious Burj Al Arab hotel. Mr. Al-Zahra insisted on meeting at his private office rather than a neutral location. This could be a good sign, or it could mean he wants home field advantage. Rosa barely had time to shower and change into the modest business suit Ahmed had helped her choose. As she looked at herself in the hotel mirror, she hardly recognized the woman staring back. Yesterday, she had been processing shipping documents in a cramped office. Today, she was preparing to enter one of the most important business negotiations in the Middle East. The drive to Karim Al-Zahra's office building took them through the heart of Dubai's financial district. Rosa watched the city pass by, amazed by the blend of ultra-modern architecture and traditional Islamic design. Everything felt dreamlike and surreal. Karim Al-Zahra's office occupied the entire top floor of a 40-story building. When the elevator doors opened, Rosa was struck by the elegant combination of contemporary business luxury and traditional Arab hospitality. Rich carpets covered marble floors, and the walls displayed beautiful calligraphy alongside modern art. Karim himself was a distinguished man in his 60s with kind but sharp eyes. He greeted Ahmed politely but coolly, and Rosa could immediately sense the tension in the room. When Ahmed introduced Rosa as his cultural advisor and translator, Karim's eyebrows rose slightly. "This is the young woman who will help us understand each other?" Karim asked in Arabic, his tone skeptical. Rosa responded in fluent, respectful Arabic, introducing herself properly and expressing her honor at meeting such a distinguished businessman. She was careful to use the formal dialect appropriate for addressing an elder, and she included traditional phrases that showed respect for his experience and wisdom. Karim's expression shifted slightly. He invited them to sit in his conference room, where Omar bin Rashid and Fahad Al Saud were waiting. Rosa felt intimidated by the 3 powerful men, but she reminded herself that Ahmed was counting on her. The meeting began with traditional coffee service, and Rosa immediately noticed Ahmed's first mistake. When offered coffee, he accepted it with his left hand, while simultaneously reaching for documents with his right. In Arab culture, the left hand is considered unclean, and using it for hospitality was an unintentional insult. Rosa quickly intervened, smoothly redirecting the conversation to give Ahmed a moment to recover. She complimented the beautiful coffee service and asked about the traditional preparation, giving Ahmed time to collect himself while showing the investors that she understood and appreciated their customs. As the formal negotiations began, Rosa realized the problems went much deeper than translation errors. The contract language wasn't just poorly translated, it reflected a fundamental misunderstanding of how Arab business relationships work. The American version treated the partnership as a purely financial transaction, while the Arab investors expected language that emphasized mutual respect, long-term collaboration, and shared values. "The Americans see us as money providers," Omar said bluntly to his colleagues in Arabic, assuming Rosa wouldn't understand the rapid, colloquial dialect. "They want our investment, but they don't want us as true partners." Rosa's heart sank. The situation was worse than Ahmed had realized. These weren't just offended businessmen. They felt genuinely disrespected and undervalued. During a break-in negotiations, Rosa asked Ahmed for permission to speak privately with the investors. Ahmed looked nervous but nodded. Rosa had an idea, but it was risky. She approached the 3 men and asked if she could address them directly. Speaking in Arabic, she said, "Respected gentlemen, I believe there has been a serious misunderstanding, and I think I know how to fix it." Rosa explained that she had grown up in Ahmed's household, watching him conduct business with Arab partners for years. "Mr. Al-Mansouri has incredible respect for Arab business culture," she said. "I've seen him host dinners where he would spend hours learning about his guests' families, their traditions, their values. The problem isn't his heart, it's that his American legal team doesn't understand how to express respect in business documents." Karim leaned forward, interested. "Continue." "In American business culture," Rosa explained, "legal documents are designed to protect against worst-case scenarios. The language sounds cold because Americans have been trained to separate emotions from contracts. But Mr. Al-Mansouri's true feelings about this partnership are very different from what these documents suggest." She proposed restructuring the entire agreement to reflect the values that were important to Arab business culture: mutual respect, long-term thinking, and partnership that went beyond mere profit sharing. Instead of a traditional acquisition model, Rosa suggested, what if we created a true joint venture where all parties have equal voice in major decisions? What if we included language about sharing knowledge, respecting cultural differences, and building something that our children could be proud of? The room fell silent. Rosa worried she had overstepped, but then Fahad spoke up. This young woman understands something that many consultants miss. Business is about relationships, not just money. Over the next 6 hours, Rosa worked with both sides to completely restructure the agreement. She didn't just translate. She helped craft new language that honored both American business efficiency and Arab relationship values. She suggested adding clauses about cultural exchange programs for employees, shared decision-making processes, and long-term commitments that went beyond the immediate financial deal. Ahmed watched in amazement as Rosa navigated complex cultural nuances he hadn't even realized existed. She knew when to speak formally and when to use more casual language. She understood which decisions required consensus and which could be made quickly. Most importantly, she helped both sides see past their cultural assumptions to find common ground. By evening, the tension in the room had completely changed. The 3 Arab investors were laughing with Ahmed, sharing stories about their families and their business experiences. Rosa had helped transform a failing negotiation into the beginning of a genuine partnership. But the real test came on the second day, when they had to finalize the financial terms. Rosa discovered that one of the major sticking points was a clause about profit distribution that the Arab investors saw as insulting. The American legal team had structured it to give Ahmed's company primary control over financial decisions, which the Arab partners interpreted as a lack of trust. Rosa suggested a creative solution. Instead of one party controlling financial decisions, they would create a rotating leadership structure where different partners would take the lead on different aspects of the project. This approach honored the Arab value of consensus building while maintaining the efficiency that Ahmed's American investors required. The breakthrough moment came when Karim stood up and said, "For 20 years, I have been waiting for American partners who truly understand collaboration. Miss Rosa has shown us that Mr. Ahmed's company doesn't just want our money, they want our partnership." As the sun set over Dubai on their second day, all parties agreed to the restructured $866 million deal. But, more than that, they had created a framework for future collaboration that could last for decades. Ahmed was exhausted but elated. As they prepared to fly back to Los Angeles, he told Rosa, "You didn't just save this deal. You've given my company a new way of thinking about international partnerships." Rosa felt proud but also overwhelmed by what had happened. In 48 hours, she had helped restructure one of the largest business deals in the region, but she had no idea that the biggest surprise was still waiting for her back home. The flight back to Los Angeles felt completely different from the journey to Dubai. Rosa stared out the airplane window, watching the clouds drift by, still unable to believe what had happened over the past 3 days. Ahmed sat beside her, quietly, reviewing the signed contracts with a smile she had never seen before. Every few minutes, he would shake his head in amazement and mutter, "Incredible," under his breath. "Rosa," Ahmed said as the plane began its descent into LAX, "I need to ask you something important. When we land, there will probably be reporters and photographers waiting. This deal is big news in the business world. Are you prepared for that kind of attention?" Rosa felt her stomach drop. She hadn't thought about media attention. "I don't know what to say to reporters." "Just be yourself," Ahmed advised. "Tell them the truth about what happened. You have nothing to be ashamed of. You just accomplished something that seasoned diplomats couldn't do." When they walked through the airport terminal, Rosa was shocked to see dozens of people waiting. Reporters with cameras, business journalists with notepads, and even some of Ahmed's company executives who had flown in to congratulate him. The flash of cameras was overwhelming, and Rosa felt completely out of her element. Ahmed handled the brief press conference with grace, explaining how crucial Rosa's cultural expertise had been in saving the deal. Without her understanding of both American business practices and Arab cultural values, this partnership never would have succeeded, he told the gathered reporters. One journalist asked Rosa directly, "How does it feel to go from working at a small import company to helping close one of the biggest international deals of the year?" Rosa thought carefully before answering. It feels surreal, she said honestly. But I think it shows that sometimes the most important qualifications aren't the ones you see on a resume. Sometimes it's about understanding people and respecting different cultures. Elena was waiting at the airport, her eyes filled with tears of pride and disbelief. She hugged her daughter tightly while the cameras continued flashing around them. I can't believe my little girl just saved an $800 million business deal, she whispered. As they drove home from the airport, Ahmed asked Rosa and Elena to come to the mansion the next morning. There are some things we need to discuss about Rosa's future, he said mysteriously. That evening, Rosa couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the events in Dubai, wondering if it had all really happened. Her small apartment felt strange after spending 2 days in luxury hotels and boardrooms. She looked at her modest bedroom, her secondhand furniture, and tried to process how much her life had changed in just 72 hours. The next morning, Rosa and Elena arrived at the mansion to find it bustling with activity. Several expensive cars were parked in the circular driveway, and Rosa recognized some of the men in suits as Ahmed's top business advisors and lawyers. Ahmed met them at the door, looking more formal than usual, but with an excitement in his eyes that Rosa had never seen before. Come to the main dining room, he said. There are some people I want you to meet. The dining room was full of important-looking people. Rosa recognized Karim Al-Zahra, who had flown in from Dubai specifically for this meeting. Omar bin Rashid was there via video conference from Qatar, and several American business executives sat around the polished mahogany table. Ahmed stood at the head of the table and asked for everyone's attention. 3 days ago, my company was facing the biggest crisis in its history. Today, we're here to celebrate not just the successful completion of our $866 million partnership, but also to recognize the extraordinary young woman who made it all possible. Rosa felt her cheeks burning with embarrassment as all eyes turned to her. She had no idea why all these powerful people were gathered in Ahmed's dining room. Rosa, Ahmed continued, what you accomplished in Dubai was remarkable, but more than that, you showed all of us a new way of thinking about international business. You proved that success isn't just about money and contracts. It's about building genuine relationships based on mutual respect and understanding. Karim stood up from his seat. Miss Rosa, I have been in business for over 40 years. I have worked with consultants from Harvard, lawyers from the most prestigious firms, and negotiators with decades of experience. But I have never seen anyone navigate cultural differences with such natural skill and genuine heart. Ahmed walked over to Rosa, carrying a thick folder. Rosa, the partnership we created in Dubai is going to generate enormous profits over the next 20 years. But more importantly, it's going to create thousands of jobs and strengthen relationships between American and Arab business communities. He opened the folder and pulled out several official-looking documents. After extensive discussions with our new partners, we have decided to make you a full partner in this venture. You will own 15% of the new joint company, which we estimate will be worth over $130 million. Rosa felt the room spinning around her. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. I'm sorry, what did you say? You heard correctly, Ahmed smiled. You're now one of the wealthiest young women in California. Elena gasped and reached for her daughter's hand. Rosa looked around the room at all the smiling faces, still unable to process what she was hearing. But that's not all, Ahmed continued. Our partners and I have also decided to establish a foundation in your mother's honor. The Elena Santos Foundation will provide educational scholarships for children of domestic workers, housekeepers, janitors, and other service employees. We're starting with a $50 million endowment. Elena burst into tears. Rosa had never seen her mother cry like this before. I don't understand, Elena said through her sobs. Why would you do such a thing? Ahmed's voice became emotional. Elena, for over 20 years, you have been more than an employee to my family. You have been a friend, a trusted member of our household, and most importantly, you raised a daughter who embodies everything good about the American dream. Rosa's success is your success, Karim added. In our culture, we believe that when someone shows you great kindness, you must return it tenfold. Rosa saved our business partnership, but more than that, she taught us that true wealth comes from the people we surround ourselves with. Over the next hour, the lawyers explained the details of Rosa's partnership stake and the foundation that would bear her mother's name. Rosa would have a seat on the board of directors of the new company, with full voting rights on major decisions. The foundation would provide scholarships specifically for children whose parents worked in service industries, helping them attend college and pursue careers they might never have thought possible. "There's one more thing," Ahmed said as the meeting was winding down. "Rosa, I would like to offer you the position of Director of International Cultural Relations for our company. Your job would be to help us navigate cultural differences in all our international partnerships. The salary is $500,000 per year, plus benefits." Rosa looked at her mother, who was still crying tears of joy and disbelief. Just 1 week ago, they had been worried about paying rent on their small apartment. Now Rosa was being offered opportunities she had never dreamed possible. "I need some time to think about all this," Rosa said quietly. "Of course," Ahmed smiled. "Take all the time you need. But Rosa, I want you to understand something important. This isn't charity. You earned every bit of this through your skill, intelligence, and integrity. You saved my company's future, and you deserve to share in that success." As the meeting ended and the important guests began to leave, Kareem approached Rosa one final time. "Miss Rosa, in my country, we have a saying. The tree that gives the best fruit is the one that was planted with the most care. Your mother planted you with love, respect, and strong values. Now you are bearing fruit that will feed many people for generations to come." 6 months later, Rosa was sitting in her new office on the 40th floor of a downtown Los Angeles skyscraper. Through her floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see the mansion in Beverly Hills where she had grown up, but it looked tiny from this height. Elena had retired comfortably and now spent her time managing the foundation that bore her name, helping other families achieve the dreams that had once seemed impossible. The scholarship program had already helped 50 students attend college, and applications were pouring in from around the country. Rosa's story had inspired countless young people to believe that extraordinary opportunities could emerge from the most ordinary circumstances. But perhaps the most amazing part of Rosa's transformation was that she never forgot where she came from. Every week, she still had dinner with her mother in their old neighborhood, and she made sure that the foundation's scholarship recipients understood that success wasn't just about making money. It was about using their opportunities to help others climb the same ladder they had climbed. The housekeeper's daughter had become a millionaire, but more importantly, she had become proof that in America, with hard work, education, and a little bit of luck, anyone could change not just their own life, but the lives of countless others.